hello there, human to be earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. Welcome back to the channel. And gee, it's good to be back home. Thanks everyone for hanging around, sticking around while all that craziness went on with YouTube, and I went away and then I came back and then I went away and then I came back and then I went away. It's been a wild month, just wild. If you haven't already, there's links in the description below to my other social media pipes, Instagram, Facebook Gaming, Twitch.tv, all that. Why not check them out? Today I want to talk about the M4 FL10, and I want to talk about this tank more than anything because it's different and because it's something that I think will be assimilated into the Blitz universe and put on a lot more vehicles in the future in terms of gameplay mechanic, and that is the drum magazine. It's like a crazy new version of the autoloader that's been around in the PC world for a little bit, but not for the Blitz universe. And it's like anything, a pros and cons approach to the game. It's where there's situations where it's better and situations where it's worse. I'm going to break this down very, very simply. Your autoloaders and your clippers tend to have a higher DPM than this, and they tend to have a much bigger downside, more risk in the way they deliver their payload. This tank fires a shell, then there is a reload, and then you can fire another shell, and then you can fire another shell. But if you can only squeeze 2 shells out, if you can only pump out 2 rounds before you have to pull back, then you don't get disadvantaged by that like you do in a normal autoloader, because the shell will the drum magazine will quite simply keep reloading regardless of what's going on around you. So if you're in an AMX-50B, say, and you pulled out sideways and you got 2 of a possible 3 shells out on a 183, you'd pull back straight away because you know you don't have time. His gun starts swinging towards you, and there's a massive downside there. You've now got 1 shell left in the magazine, and you have to decide, do I go for a full reload and waste like 14 seconds reloading, or do I try to save this last shell and use it? And that's where your DPM goes in the toilet, and where your decision making becomes really, really important. With this tank, that is not an issue. The payoff that the game makes for this is excellent. Like you are then a tank that is, look, I'm reloading this shell. Even though I've only got 1 left in the clip, I get another one immediately, and then I'm pulling back, and all the time my DPM is getting topped up. So you get the bonus of immense DPM burst. Like, I can output 3 160 alpha rounds, bang, like that, and then pull back. And that's a lot of damage. That's, 480 damage. And if you look at a tank like the Chi-Ri, for instance, which is another autoloader at tier 7, it does exactly the same thing. It can output 3 160 alpha rounds, and then bang, pulls back, and everyone's a winner. Now, that's pretty cool, isn't it? I mean, that is obviously a very cool thing. But, there's a downside to all this, and I'm going to break down why that is. The Chi-Ri has a 16.5 second reload on its 3 shells. It takes you 13 seconds to completely reload all your shells, but obviously you're always reloading. Between each shell, you have 1 second on the Chi-Ri, so you can dump your full 480 alpha in 2 seconds. 0, 1, 2, 480 alpha. For the M4, it's 0, 1.3, 2.6 for your 480 alpha. Not a lot, but a slight downside. The negative on this is that if the Chi-Ri is constantly firing and then reloading and constantly firing, it can get up to nearly 2,700 damage per minute. You can only max this tank out at 2,100. How savage is this? And by the way, have a look at the chat. I'll say savage M4. That's right, savage. Now, that means that the Chi-Ri has a much higher ceiling. How high? Well, you're looking at like nearly 26, 27% more, like basically a quarter more DPM. And damage per minute is an important stat, but this is a more consistent DPM. And the autoloader, when you've got 3 shells in a clip, is your standard, your industry standard. It's a pretty arbitrary number though. You get autoloaders like the AT7, which is nuts, where you get 10 in a clip, and autoloaders like the new Foch gun, which is 2 in a clip. And deciding on those situations is what makes players very wary of the autoloader lifestyle. Are you going to fire 2 and then retreat, and then do you go for a full reload? And that takes time and experience. This takes out a lot of the middleman, and it means that when you are driving the M4 FL10, you don't have to deal with so many of those issues. Now, I've heard people say that the struggle with this tank is the penetration. It's more than that. It's the penetration with lack of gun depression. The numbers on the gun are nearly exactly the same as the numbers on the Comet's 160 Alpha gun, which means that there can't be that much wrong with it, because I actually get a lot of damage out of the Comet, but it doesn't have the gun depression. It's only got 6 degrees of gun depression, which means it's a lot hard to manufacture those easy shots. Now, the reason for that is, you know, they give these things pros and cons, because you can't have something that has gun depression, penetration, auto-loading clip, everything, or you just have an overpowered tank. So this tank does struggle a lot against tier 8 vehicles. I find that, especially against tier 8 heavies, it's very, very tough. And its mobility is such that it's all right, but it's not special. It's another one of those tanks that is a real handful to play. It's not perfect, it's not broken, it's not overpowered, it's not underpowered, it's just different and delicate. And for that reason alone, I find it to be quite a cool premium tank. It's also a new vessel. It's a very, very different mode of gameplay to your standard autoloader, and it's going to take some adjustment. The M4 FL10 is a pretty sweet ride, and it's something that I think you should probably investigate running about in and having a go at yourself if you get the opportunity. Is it going to earn you a heap of bank? No. Is it particularly good at bouncing shots? No. Does it have a lot of gun depression? No. Does it have a unique combat system so far to World of Tanks Blitz? Yes. So if you're an old player, an old hand, an old salt like me, and you're just looking for interesting places to dump your damage like that, then it's still really, really useful, because like all clippers or autoloader magazine type shells, magazine type tanks, it can deliver an awfully large payload in an awfully quick, time frame. Like nearly 500 damage in one burst of 2.6 seconds is a lot for a tier 7 medium to dump out. Play it like a Peek-a-Boom tank, play it like it's got one big filthy bunch of damage available, and then just get the hell out of town and you'll be just fine and dandy. It's also mobile enough to deal with a lot of other issues, which is great, as you can see here. And if you duck out and do the bad thing to good people, then you'll have a grand old time. I'm Bushka. Thank you so much for watching the channel. Thank you for being part of my life. Thank you for supporting me through what was a very dark time recently. And as always, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.